أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. صدق الله العظيم.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyed, who is the chief guest of today's event, is joining us shortly. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman, Board of Governors, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Esteemed panelists, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to today's seminar titled Bandung Spirit 1955 to 2025, 7 Decades of Solidarity, Sovereignty and South-South Cooperation, organized by China Pakistan Study Center at Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. We are gathered here to celebrate an historic moment, the 70th anniversary of Bandung Conference, which was also known as Afro-Asian Conference, hosted by Indonesia, bringing together 29 newly independent states and leaders from Asia and Africa to share their ideas, build friendships, and support each other in building peaceful and independent futures for their countries, and laying down a principle of South-South cooperation. The Bandung spirit was built on mutual respect, equality, and cooperation. It encouraged countries to work together, support each other's development, and build strong relationship based on trust and shared values. These ideas have stood the test of time and continue to be norm of international relations even today. The world has changed a lot since 1955, but the values of Bandung continue to guide us even today. Countries in Global South are working more closely than ever before. We have witnessed greater cooperation in trade, infrastructure, education, and innovation, and countries are coming together to build a better future for their people. Pakistan has always believed in cooperation, peace, and partnership. Our close relationship with China and other Global South countries is a strong example of how countries can join hands to support progress and development. We are supportive of shared efforts to promote connectivity, economic growth, and mutual benefit. Today's seminar will reflect on this inspiring legacy and give us an opportunity to look ahead to the future with hope and purpose, and share ideas, experiences, and explore how we can continue to strengthen South-South cooperation in the years to come. I look forward to a meaningful and engaging discussion in this seminar. With this brief intro, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, Director General of ISSI, for his welcome remarks. Ambassador Sohail Mahmood is serving as DG ISSI. Besides holding prestigious position of Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, he has served Pakistan as High Commissioner to India and held key diplomatic assignments in Turkey, United States, and Thailand. Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, you have the floor, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, esteemed speakers, dear participants, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon. I wish to begin by extending a very warm welcome to everyone to this ISSI seminar, commemorating a major milestone in our shared history, that is the 70th anniversary of the Bandung Conference.
Sorry for the delay.
Please.
I'm very sorry for the delay, but I had to be with the Palestine ambassador at the Art for Gaza exhibition. My apologies.
Warm welcome, sir. This occasion has special salience for Pakistan, as it was one of the 5 organizing states of the conference. Prime Minister Muhammad Ali Bogra represented Pakistan and contributed significantly to its successful outcome. We are privileged to have eminent academics, practitioners, and thought leaders as part of our panel today. Their views and perspectives on various dimensions of our theme would immensely enrich the proceedings. I am particularly grateful to Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyed for joining us as chief guest. His ability to analyze historical trends and project the future trajectory of global politics is as remarkable as it is instructive. I have no doubt that we would all be wiser on this subject by the time we conclude this seminar. Distinguished participants, 70 years ago, in April 1955, leaders from 29 newly independent nations of Asia and Africa gathered in Bandung, Indonesia, to chart both an ambitious and visionary course in international relations. Emerging from the long shadow of colonialism, these nations wished to assert their sovereignty, work for enhanced economic and cultural collaboration, and steer away from the confining framework of bloc politics at that high noon of the Cold War. Rejecting domination or division, they placed emphasis on mutual respect, equality, and solidarity. It is, however, important to remember that the Bandung Conference was preceded by the enunciation of 5 principles of peaceful coexistence on 28 June 1954. China's Premier Zhou Enlai played a seminal role in articulating these 5 principles, which include mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. These 5 principles represented Asian wisdom and the post-revolution China's first major contribution to global diplomatic thought. The 10-point declaration adopted by the Afro-Asian Conference at Bandung in 1955 fully incorporated those 5 principles. In addition, the Bandung Conference placed strong emphasis on respect for fundamental human rights, adherence to the principles and purposes of the UN Charter, rejection of the threat or use of force, settlement of disputes through peaceful means, and promotion of international cooperation. The leaders participating in the conference were conscious of the historic significance of their undertaking. In effect, they were putting forth an alternative, non-Western vision to what had essentially been a Western paradigm in international relations for a long time. The host president, Sukarno, emphasized that they were, quote, injecting the voice of reason in world affairs, unquote. Premier Zhou Enlai, a star participant of the conference, presciently advised that the goal should be to find common ground, not to foster divisions. Scholars have written extensively about the Bandung spirit that emerged from the conference and represented a common desire for peaceful coexistence, liberation of the world from hegemony, colonialism, imperialism, and any form of domination of one country by another, equality of races and nations, solidarity with the poor and the weak, and people-centered development. The conference also inspired the development of several new legal norms and institutions aimed at safeguarding the interests of the developing or the so-called third world emerging at the time. The Bandung Conference was indeed a defining moment as it sowed the seeds of what subsequently turned into powerful movements and historical trends such as non-alignment, the quest for new international economic order, and South-South cooperation. In a fundamental sense, the principles and values fostered by the Bandung Conference continue to have relevance in today's world, which is marked by geopolitical flux, strategic competition, growing incidence of the use of force and armed conflicts, erosion of time-honored norms of interstate relations, and multilateral institutions under stress. Amidst all this, the Bandung spirit offers not only lessons but also inspiration to reaffirm our commitment to peaceful coexistence, resist hegemonic tendencies, and advance a just, inclusive, and equitable global order. As noted, Pakistan was one of the founding participants at Bandung. It has remained steadfast in upholding Bandung's principles. Over the past 7 decades, Pakistan has consistently advocated for peaceful conflict resolution, mutual respect among nations, and stronger regional and global cooperation. Pakistan's all-weather strategic cooperative partnership with China, active engagement in forums like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and support for initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative are important reflections of this unwavering commitment. As we celebrate the legacy of Bandung, we should be mindful that there are skeptics out there questioning its relevance in today's world. An essay in the latest issue of The Economist, for instance, highlights what it calls a damp squib anniversary of Bandung attributable to lack of solidarity. It seems to base its case on perceived lack of Afro-Asian unity, the development gap between Asia and Africa, the emergence of groupings like BRICS, and a tendency among major developing countries to chart their individual course and increase their global clout. While these assertions might have some grain of truth, they do not represent the full picture. The so-called Global South today is much more confident, more interconnected, and increasingly influential in shaping global discourses. Its increased agency is enabling it to play a more pivotal role in the transforming global order. But still, there is also no denying the fact that the path ahead requires continued solidarity, mutual support, and collective resolve to address challenges ranging from poverty and inequality to climate change and technological divides. As we reflect on this remarkable journey of past 70 years, it is important to seek practical ways to further strengthen the bonds among the nations of the Global South, promote peace and development, and contribute to a fairer and more harmonious world. Once again, I thank all the eminent speakers and participants for joining us for this important commemoration. I am confident that today's deliberations will be rich, insightful, and forward-looking. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Mahmood, Director General ISSI, for your very comprehensive the welcome remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to request Ambassador Zamir Akram for his remarks. Ambassador Zamir Akram is currently advisor to Strategic Plans Division, Government of Pakistan, a seasoned diplomat. He has served as Pakistan's permanent representative to United Nations in Geneva and held key assignments in the US, India, and former Soviet Union. He is author of a book, Security Imperative, Pakistan's Nuclear Deterrence and Diplomacy. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'm honored to be given this opportunity to participate in this very important event and to be asked to make a presentation. Recently, I was in Karachi along with Senator Mushahid Hussain in an event similar to this, and that has sort of helped me to prepare for my presentation here. The Bandung conference was obviously, as has been said, a very powerful response to the forces of colonialism and imperialism by the newly independent countries of Asia, Africa, and some also in Latin America, and led to this movement, which we then have called the non-aligned movement, which was created in 1961. And this movement has brought together countries from all over the developing world, or what we call the global south, as a force to bring change to the then international order, the sort of post-Second World War order dominated by the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The objective of this effort was to give the developing countries a choice to pursue an independent course and not be dependent upon either of the two great powers. But this was obviously a difficult task, and certainly the two major powers, the United States and the Soviet Union, were not happy with the way these newly independent countries were uniting to pursue a course of action that was not necessarily in the interests of the major powers. And it's not surprising, therefore, that shortly after Bandung and shortly after the creation of the non-aligned movement, there were forcible changes, regime changes, conducted primarily by the United States, at times with the assistance and collaboration of the United Kingdom and some of the other Western powers. And freedom fighters, leaders of newly independent countries, were either forcibly removed or assassinated. And it's worth recalling the names of some of these heroes, which include people like Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Mohammad Mossadegh, Salvador Allende, and of course Mr. Sukarno, who was the leader of the Indonesian freedom movement and the host of the Bandung Conference in 1955. On the other side of what was then called the Iron Curtain, and that is the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union was no different in a way. Its focus or its efforts to undermine, destabilize the independent approach to communism and the practice of controlled economies by people like President Tito of Yugoslavia and some others who dared to challenge the Soviet hold over their countries, such as in Hungary, were also in some cases removed or came under tremendous strain from the Soviet Empire. This kind of approach between the two major powers, I will just share with you an anecdote I shared in Karachi, and when you heard this. It's an interesting insight into the thinking of the major powers. This was actually in 1984, soon after the Soviet Union, not soon, but a few years after the Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan, that the then Pakistan's foreign minister, Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, was in Moscow, and he was making a case that Pakistan's support for the Afghan struggle against the Soviet occupation was rooted in the principles of this non-aligned movement and for supporting a fellow non-aligned country. After listening patiently to Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, Mr. Andrei Gromyko, the then Soviet foreign minister, replied that, you know, Mr. Foreign Minister, there are only two really non-aligned countries in the world. One is the United States and the other is the Soviet Union. So his implication was that non-aligned countries may claim to be non-aligned, but there were varying degrees of alignment between them. And of course, this is true, and that has also been a problem that has been faced by the non-aligned group, and Ambassador Sohail Mahmood referred to the article, the editorial in the Economist, which gives a Western perspective of how the non-aligned movement has now become, quote unquote, a damp squib, and has lost its direction, it's lost its meaning. And it began to happen when the Soviet Union collapsed, the bipolar world transformed into a unipolar world dominated by the United States, which unleashed its own approach to creating a new order and imposing American hegemony, leading to the invasions of so many different countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, and others. And in that environment, the international community, particularly the developing countries, have had to look for ways of protecting their own, first and foremost, their own national interests. So they have tried to seek alignments and trying to protect their interests, and some have tried to use this environment to even promote their interests and promote their own ambitions at the cost of other developing countries. However, the one country that has played a constructive role from the very beginning, from the very inception, from Bandung itself, and continues to play that role, and this is my personal opinion, you may or may not agree with me, but my personal opinion is that the one country that has consistently played a constructive role has been the People's Republic of China. And this is still very true. And now I would bring us to the current global environment, which is a multipolar environment, where there is not just the US as a major power, as a global power, but also China and a resurgent Russia. So these three major global powers are the basis on which the current multipolar world is structured. In this multipolar order, the Chinese have provided ways in which it can still come and help and promote unity and solidarity in the developing countries. And these are things, again, that Ambassador Sohail has mentioned, such as the BRI, the creation of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, it's the new development bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. These are all initiatives taken by the Chinese which are directed at assisting developing countries around the world. So there is hope that in this new environment, in this multilateral, multipolar environment, there is room for the developing countries to coalesce, to promote greater solidarity and benefit from South-South cooperation. And then before concluding, as an example of this South-South cooperation, I want to present to you a tangible process in which this is being undertaken by the non-aligned group of countries, and in which I have the honor to have been involved since 2015, and that is the time when I was elected as the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Council's working group on the right to development. This working group's objective is to promote the acceptance, the global international acceptance of the right to development as a human right, equal and at par with all other human rights. And this right is pursued on the basis of the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and among other things. And it was as a result of this non-aligned movement-led initiative that created or concluded the Declaration on the Right to Development adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1986. However, this document is a non-binding law. It's a soft law. There is no enforcement or binding character as there is to the other human rights instruments. And therefore, and particularly since the Western countries, or the global North as we would call them, were not willing to accept this as a human right, and there have been obstacles to the implementation of this, achievement of this human right, the non-aligned movement has been keen to convert this right to development into a legally binding instrument. And in 2019, the Human Rights Council mandated me then as the chair of this group to draft a legally binding instrument, and that instrument was ready by 2023, submitted to the Council, which then forwarded it to the UN General Assembly. So as a document, this new draft covenant on the right to development as a human right is now before the General Assembly, and its adoption, hopefully soon, will be a major milestone, a major step forward towards the realization of what essentially is the objectives of the Bandung Conference and the direction of the non-aligned movement, which not only includes strategies for peace, as the document of the Institute says, not only strategies for peace, but also for sustainable development. So I'll end here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Meerakan, for your very candid views on how Bandung conference actually laid foundation of what we expect with regard to South-South cooperation and with regard to major powers. Now I would like to invite Ambassador Dr. Nafis Zakaria for his remarks. And Ambassador Dr. Nafis Zakaria is Executive Director of ComSats and has served as Pakistan's High Commissioner to UK and Malaysia. His diplomatic assignments include senior roles in London, Toronto, Abu Dhabi, and Bangkok, as well as leadership positions at MOFA. Sir, you have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. And Assalamu alaikum, everyone. When I was invited to speak on regarding the spirit of Bandung Conference, I was thinking as to where to begin with, actually, because I saw that spirit actually not there, not anymore. Things have changed, the time has changed. But the manifestation of that spirit still exists in different ways. World has changed and seen the transition from bipolar to unipolar and then now multipolar. And all along, I think what has always driven these ideas of South-South cooperation, non-aligned movement, I think the basic realization was that those who were powerful, whether economically or technologically, they actually exploited those who were weak, relatively. So the spirit was that dependence on each other who are weak, and find out our strengths, how to go about utilizing those strengths, benefit each other, and grow stronger. And lessen the dependence on those who were the exploiter at that time. I think this was something which I have actually summed up in that sense. I'm very critical about this words used during some of the deliberations, like solidarity, mutual respect, and integrity, and all these things. I think if you look at if you do the analysis of what happened after Bandung Conference, the countries which were part of the Bandung Conference, they became the biggest exploiter themselves. And among all the countries of who participated, we have seen the wars between them. We have seen the civil wars in those countries. Then we have seen the weakening of economies and further dependence on the world that was exploiting them. While the Bandung Conference came into existence at that time, then Seattle and CENTO also came into existence. If Bandung Conference was the spirit was unifying, the other two were actually weakening that spirit, in my assessment. But I think I'll come to the organization that I'm heading at the moment. I'm Executive Director of Commission on Science and Technology for Sustainable Development in the South. In short, we call it COMSETS. Do not misunderstand this with the University of COMSET. That is one of the centers of excellence of COMSET. So COMSET basically is an intergovernmental organization of 27 member states. In my understanding, it is the only purely science and technology intergovernmental organization in the world. So our entire focus remains on science and technology. So this basically came into existence as a vision of the Nobel laureate, renowned scientist of Pakistan, Professor Abdus Salam, in 1994, because he realized that where the problem is. He saw that the divide or the gap of technology and knowledge between the global north and global south was the reason. And his vision was to bridge that gap. So he invited almost 37 countries from global south, all of them that participated, and today we have 27 member states. It's an organization or platform of 27 member states. We derive our strength from 25 centers of excellence. So we are basically, our footprint is in Africa, Asia. There are 12 African countries that are member. The High Commissioner of Zimbabwe is sitting here. They are also member. Pakistan is the founding member. China is the founding member, and there are many others. So African countries, 12 African countries, 13 Asian countries, and 2 Latin American countries came to form this platform initially. And the spirit of Bandung Conference is very much reflected in the objectives of COMSETS. Because we believe our overarching objective is South-South cooperation. The Professor Abdus Salam, his thrust was that we should identify our strengths and then utilize those strengths and expertise to benefit each other so that we could increase the intra-South or South-South cooperation. So intra-COMSET cooperation has been growing, but at a very slower pace, because I think we are still struggling with the kind of support that is needed to identify the strength and exploit them. I think this realization should have come much earlier, that how technology has been driving the economies. And technology has actually strengthened and created gap between the developed world and the developing countries. And that has also actually given the way for the developing countries to remain dependent on the developed countries. Although I won't say that there is no interdependence, there is. But one has to see that what kind of dependence the developed world has in us and what kind of dependence we have in them. So I think the dependence basically is dominated by the technology. We actually, COMSETs as a platform, we are working on nowadays, which are the buzzword, which are the basically ideas that are driving the entire global community, is the renewable energies, use of renewable energy, carbon market, carbon credit, precision agriculture, precision medicine, genome sequencing and editing, tech-enabled healthcare, skill development, upskilling, employability, digitalization, and now the emerging technologies in which AI, which is data-driven technological application, is basically the is at the center of every action or activities that are taking place across the globe. We believe that unless the South-South cooperation strengthens and the member states of Global South come together, join forces, and share their expertise and their strength, the situation 50 years down the line will remain the same. There is a saying, and I believe in that the global economic gravity has actually shifted from to Asia. And the factors are the human resource that we have, the natural resources, unexploited or underexploited natural resources that we have in this Asian continent, and the kind of strength that we have actually. I think we need to understand that, exploit that. I'm availing of this opportunity, this forum, and speaking here to invite everyone's attention who are representing their countries here, and you can, those who are otherwise connected to the outside world, that we need to have increase the interdependence among the Global South, the countries of Global South. Unless we do that, we may not be able to actually, I would say that, go into that or leapfrog into the community which is called the developed world. We have examples of Japan, we have example of Korea, we have examples of China, that those who have actually done a marvelous job. But I think these three countries, or some of them like them, they don't constitute the entire Global South. It's a huge population. Global South, if you look at the strength of Global South, their combined GDP is about $35 trillion. Their combined population is immense, huge. And definitely the kind of talent that we have, that talent is actually being utilized by the developed nations for their own good, and further increasing the dependence of the developing countries on them. So I've identified the areas also. I have actually informed the audience here and through you to the outside world that there are forums which are open, which are willing to work, which must be utilized. So I welcome everyone who wants to join hand with ComSat platform to promote South-South cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Dr. Nafees Zakaria, for your very candid views. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Mr. Rahmat Artha Kusuma for his remarks. Mr. Rahmat is Charge d'Affaires of Embassy of Indonesia in Pakistan. He has actively worked to enhance bilateral relations through cultural events, trade forums, and educational exchanges. Mr. Rahmat, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Senator Mushaid Hussain, Chief Guest, Excellencies, respected speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I feel honored, humbled, and happy at the same time to be before this distinguished seminar to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Asia-Africa Conference. My sincere thanks to our colleagues from ISI and other parties for making the seminar possible. On the lasting legacy of the conference, namely the Bandung spirit, 7 decades of solidarity, sovereignty, and South-South cooperation. This is indeed a momentous and joyous occasion. 70 years is not just a number. It is a testament that the Bandung spirit remains relevant, even very critical in our world today that is experiencing immense flux, uncertainty, polarization, and shift in global power structure. The Asia-Africa Conference held in Bandung on 1824 April 1955 was organized only 10 years after Indonesia proclaimed its independence. It was not only a historic event in Indonesian foreign policy, but also an evidence that contribution to the world peace and justice has been DNA in the Indonesian diplomacy since the beginning. The most important thing was that the conference ended with great success, both in uniting stances and formulating the outlines of cooperation between Asian and African nations. When the conference held, the world was still recovering from war and uncertainty. The global order was fragile, and many nations stood alone in navigating a fragmented world. Yet, amid such uncertainty, they believed in partnership, grounded in respect for principles and values which are called commonly by Dasa Sila Bandung, as mentioned by Ambassador Suhail, or 10 Bandung principles, also well known by Bandung spirit. The main message was clear. The age of colonialism and imperialism must give way to an era of collaboration and cooperation, where all nations have equal opportunities to prosper and where all have the rights to development. Nowadays, in the world filled with uncertainty, where trust is eroding and global cooperation is fading, more than ever, we must reaffirm our commitment to the Bandung spirit. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the end of World War II in August 1945 did not mean the end of the hostile situation among the nations of the world. In some parts of the world, there were still problems, and new problems emerged. Even some of those problems remain unresolved up to date and more complicated for a comprehensive and just resolution. Colonization experienced by countries in Asia, Africa has been a crucial problem since the 15th century. Although since 1945, many countries, especially in Asia, have gained their independence, but there were still many other countries fighting for their independence. At the time, Several independent ASEAN African countries also still faced many problems left over from colonialism and imperialism, such as Indonesian Papua, Kashmir, Aden, and Palestine, as well as countless border disputes among countries. In addition, conflicts between community groups within the country have been still raging due to the colonial politics of divide et impera, or divide and rule. Looking at the Bandung spirit through the lens of conflict resolution, collective actions are needed in resolving all international disputes by peaceful means such as negotiations, agreements, arbitrations, or other peaceful means according to the choice of the parties concerned in accordance with the UN Charter. With this spirit in our mindset, Global South should act as bridge builder for peace creation. We should then promote inclusivity and embrace Global North to come into our action, promotion of peace and justice. Indeed, the Global South and Global North shall work together in creating and maintaining peace and security in the global stage, since both live in the same globe with opportunities, challenges, and risks. As the Chinese saying goes, hopefully I have a good spelling on this, Tongzu Gongji. We cross this river in the same boat together. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, behind the success of the conference in Bandung, we may take a historical moment of reflection to look back in time when the representatives of the three nations of the South Asian region took seats together to co-sponsor the conference. They are Excellencies Sir John Kotelawala, Honorable Prime Minister of Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, Excellency Muhammad Ali Bogra, Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan, Excellency Jawaharlal Nehru, Honorable Prime Minister of India. All of the three prominent figures from South Asian region discussed the preparation of the Asia-Africa Conference in terms of logistics and critical issues with their counterparts, Excellency Ali Sastro Amijoyo, Honorable Prime Minister of Indonesia, and Asidi Unu, Honorable Prime Minister of Burma. It was an excellent track record for the three representatives of South Asian region to sit together, despite existing differences between Pakistan and India. Indeed, differences did not make both countries absent in keep contributing to the world peace and security. It was very, very positive. Despite changes nowadays, with reference to the very positive records from Pakistan and India in sponsoring the successful Asia-Africa Conference 1955, which helped ignite the non-aligned movement later on, we believe that the two countries have the remaining spirits currently in addressing the differences and resolving the disputes in peaceful manners. We do hope that the two brotherly countries for Indonesia, Pakistan and India, will do their best in reducing tension and start much better peaceful coexistence to maintain peace and security in the region and the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, distinguished guests, let our gathering today convey a message that despite regional and global differences, we unite and refrain ourselves from hostilities. We choose peaceful settlement among ourselves. We promote solidarity, and we will elevate strategic trust among ourselves for a betterment condition for a world peace and stability. Thank you very much. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Kusuma, for your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Dr. Salma Malik for her remarks. Dr. Malik is Associate Professor at Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Quaid-e-Azam University. She specializes in conflict, security, and South Asian strategic affairs. A widely published academic, she regularly lectures at National Defense University and other institutions across Pakistan. You have the floor, ma'am.
बहुत शुक्रिया. Thank you very much, Dr. Talal Shabir, for hosting this extremely important session from your forum, and to Director General and Chairperson, Institute of Strategic Studies, for the opportunity. It's always great when you have wonderful speakers before you, and they say all the right stuff, and you can simply say, I absolutely agree, and I second whatever has been said. It's so true that when we look at the Bandung conference, or the spirit that we are commemorating here, there are a lot of positivities that we can focus upon. The solidarity, the fact that a wonderful alliance of common thinking countries very diverse in their political cultures, in their political ideologies, yet they found a lot of commonalities to come up. So it was kind of like, the phoenix rising from the ashes of the Second World War. And the voiceless countries so far, the point that Ambassador Zamir had said, that there were only 2 countries that remained non-aligned at that time. The rest of the world stood very much aligned, and here were these 29 countries which were considered not to be of great consequence, including China at that time, that decided not only to come up but have a shared common vision, a very solid common vision, not acrimonious, but a vision that was based on respecting each other's differences and developing commonality, inclusivity, despite all those differences. This was the right thing to do. And 70 years on, whatever has survived, the fact that we are very honestly auditing this spirit, and we do find that there's many things left undesired. There are many things that are not how they should be. The world has moved on. The contexts have moved on. There's a very different connotation for each country that finds its own priorities. But when you actually look at these 70 years, it has also given rise to several institutions that in their own context have not only brought about 40% of the world's GDP together and a lot of growth potential for countries. Many countries, through their unilateral as well as multilateral fora, have now become a sound voice in the global politics and are also championing the major world politics rights. The Bandung conference and the spirit also gave rise to a notion which is becoming fast depleting, and that is dialogue. Trying to listen to each other, trying to actually become the voice for others, mutually assisting and helping those who cannot really find a voice for themselves, and developing a strength in unity. And today when we find so much of genocidal activities and war crimes taking place in Palestine, in Gaza, war knocking at the South Asian door, I think there's a need to revoke the spirit and sanity that goes with it, and also realize, can we really work out these differences through such fora once again? It's not only an isolated activity that there is a war about to take place, or at least how the media is portraying it, that it's just about to happen within the next few hours in South Asia, which God forbid does not happen, because there's a lot at stake. But when we look at security, I think when 70 years back, this conference talked about security from a very traditional lens, the points of convergence and collectivity today are security from all parameters. Looking at this aspect not only through education, through food security, through health security, and many other notions which the Global South can very proudly champion, and it is doing. China, which at that time was also leading the thought when Chairman Chaoen-Lee talked about, Premier Chaoen-Lee talked about seeking unity, not to quarrel, to seek common ground and not to create divergences, was something that is also what China is professing today. The principles of Panchshila that were the foundations of the 10 main goals of this conference, and the spirit that leads it were also something that China champions today as well. Can we actually also inherit and try to inculcate them in our societies? I think if we do any half bit of that, the world would be a better place. What has happened through these decades is also the fact that within Asia as well as Africa, China as a main power has led countries through a path of progress. The Belt and Road Initiative not only talks about developing infrastructure, it also talks about developing the spirit into a concrete framework. So I think we should also look at that from a positive angle. Can we actually move beyond our diversities and different differences and embrace these common points? The technology that comes with this, can we really champion that technology? Ambassador Nafeez Zakaria, when you were talking about the fact that it remains a checkered history, yet there's a lot of potential in this area. Are we really tapping into that potential? Unfortunately, we are not. We know about it, we talk about it, we meet occasionally, we glorify the past, and we think about a very glorious future. But are we really doing all those aspects in real time is a question. I think meeting once in a while, commemorating these days, talking about the spirit is absolutely fine. But actually implementing all those aspects is very important, and we need to do that. What has the Global South, the Asia-African unity coming together, what has that brought us? It has brought us a lot of common thinking. It has also provided us with a lot of moments of awakening and awareness about the atrocities that are taking place, the fact that the international norms which were set by the very champions of human rights and all are being willfully broken by that. But are we, the same countries of this spirit, the spirit brotherhood, is that really doing anything to reclaim that spirit back? I think in the 70 years, this is also a point of reflection and a moment of reflection for us to think about the fact that can we really go back to the scoreboard and revive not only the spirit through commemorating it and talking about the goodness that is done. It has also, as I said, brought about a lot of alliances, multilateral, bilateral. It has brought a lot of prosperity within these countries, but it hasn't really done several things that it was supposed to do. So I think let's not wait another decade and start as of today and see what concrete actions that we can do on ground to revive the spirit and really make it true. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Salma Malik. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite chief guest of today's event, Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyed, for his address. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the name of the Almighty, the Lord of all mankind, I would like to especially thank the Institute of Strategic Studies, Pakistan's preeminent think tank, led by Chairman Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab, and the dynamic and creative and innovative Director General Ambassador Suhail Mahmood Sahab, and of course Dr. Talat Shabir Sahab. I think your latest articles and your book about your father is a very moving, I think, testimony to your family, which is the core unit of society. I think you paid homage to your late father, and you're also a man of letters, apart from being a China expert. And of course, my friend, Mr. Hindiarta Kusumo, Charge d'Affaires, I can say Mardeka Indonesia, Mardeka, mashallah. And also Titus Jonathan Abu Basuto, Ambassador of Zimbabwe to Pakistan, a very old friend. Other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And of course, Zamir Akram, who has always had strategic clarity on issues, whether it's the nuclear program or Kashmir or Palestine or India. So it's a pleasure to be with him last weekend at the conference organized by the Pakistan Institute for International Affairs in Karachi by Dr. Masoom Hassan on the same theme, where we were colleagues and we spent 3 nights together in that hotel. I'm very pleased to be here for A couple of reasons. Number one, there's also a personal reason, because my late father, Colonel Amjad Hussain Sayyid Saab, was Pakistan's first military attaché to Indonesia. And I spent my childhood there, and he became good friends with not just the Indonesian military leadership of that period, General Abdul Haris Nasution, Defense Minister, General Yani, Army Chief, General Gatot Sabroto, but also with Dr. Ahmed Sukarno, the President. And my late mother, Samin Sayyid Sahaba, was also personal friends with the First Lady of Indonesia at that time, Madam Fatmawati. They used to go for prayers together, especially Eid Namaz, and they used to visit each other also and exchange gifts. So there's a very personal connection. And we used to live on 42 Jalan Dipo Nagoro. And I was studying in Regina Pacis School, which is the Lady of Peace, is a Catholic missionary school in Jakarta. I remember I went to see President Joko Widodo. He said, "Excellency, what are your plans here?" I said, "Excellency, I've come back home." He said, "Where's your home?" I said, 42 Jalan Dipo Nagoro. He said, "Oh, really?" He said, "That's a very good area, because Magawati used to live there also. It's a very elite area." And we used to live in an old Dutch villa. So, and then later on, my father was also given the highest military award by Indonesia, the Bintang Dharma, Star of Merit. So it was there. And then we also sang Indonesian song together also, Potong Bebe Ansa, you know. So, you know, and last time when I went there, I met the leader of the opposition, a very strong person, a former general. His name was Prabowo Subianto. And he hosted a dinner for me, and he was former son-in-law of Suharto. And he said, "Excellency, since you are a friend and like a brother, I want to show you my war room." He was preparing for the presidential elections. He had tried twice but failed. I said, "This time you will succeed because you have done homework." And today he's the president of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. So, and Fadli Zon, his culture minister, is a very dear friend of mine and other friends also. So with Indonesia, we have a very special relationship, and it's a very brotherly bond. Ladies and gentlemen, we have discussed the Bandung Conference. I think the Bandung Conference was quite a turning point in global politics, and especially for the developing countries of Asia and Africa at that time. I think it was the first assertion of autonomy, the first assertion of some sort of independence at that time in a world which was still dominated by Western colonialism and the Cold War. And what Gromyko told Sabza Saab in your presence in Moscow, there was a very clear view of that. The rest don't matter, but we count. But I think the history has shown that others do matter. And that is how the course of history is developed. So I think the first big, achievement was that historically, I think three are very relevant from a Pakistani perspective also. Number one, that it was, I would say, China's entry into the international stage of diplomacy. And this was very significant because at that time, Asian diplomacy was dominated by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. He was the darling of the West. He spoke English very well. He was, as I say, a Brown Sahib. He had been educated in Cambridge, and he had close ties with Mountbatten and the media of India and everything. And Zhou Enlai, of course, was seen as a communist and an intruder into diplomacy. And by the way, I had the pleasure of meeting Premier Zhou Enlai, one of the most brilliant, one of the most charming, one of the greatest statesmen and diplomats produced by Asia, I think, in the 20th century. And I remember reading a book. You can see a man who was so culturally rich also and with cosmopolitan tastes. He went as foreign minister of China to the Indochina Peace Conference in Geneva in 1954. And he was there in Geneva. And, you know, he made an interesting request, which is now documented in the autobiography of Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, the great actor, was living in Geneva. He had left the US. And he said he got a call that the foreign minister, Zhou Enlai, wants to meet you. And he was shocked. He said, how? And Zhou Enlai told him that they had a meeting and in Geneva, because Charlie Chaplin had left the US. He was accused of being a communist and a leftist. So he left the US in disgust. He was actually an Englishman. Then he settled in Hollywood. And after the Cold War, he left. And he said that Zhou Enlai talked about his movies. He said, I like The Great Dictator and other movies like that. So this was Zhou Enlai. And he was such a person that he said when he knew English and French, but until and unless, he said, I told a joke to him, and in English, he did not laugh till it was translated in Chinese. So you can see the control he had and the finesse of his diplomacy. And so in 1955, Zhou Enlai, as it was mentioned, I think by Salma, I think that he said unity and so forth, that he said on a minimum common platform, people expected him to be an ideologue. That, oh, Chairman Mao gave him directions that forge a common united front on the minimum platform of unity. And that was his mandate. Forget about relations. Like in Pakistan, also he reached out to that. So that was a very important thing. And Zhou Enlai upstaged Nehru in that conference. And Nehru was very upset in the Bandung conference. Although Pakistan, India, Ceylon, Burma, and Indonesia were among the co-sponsors, but Nehru felt that, who is this guy? And by the way, Zhou Enlai was a very handsome man. He came from a bourgeois family, not from a working class family. So he upstaged, he was outreach, and so China's entry into the international stage was Bandung. And that's how people, slowly and slowly then they rose. Secondly, I think the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, which were authored initially by Premier Zhou Enlai together with the Nehru and U Nu, the Prime Minister of Burma. So, but that became enshrined, as you said, the Panchshila. Panch means 5. So you know the language, Panch hum kehte hain na, wo Panchshila, bhasa mein kehte hain. So that became enshrined as one of the basic norms of interstate conduct among countries in Asia, countries in Africa, and eventually Latin America also. So that was extremely important. The third important thing, at least for Pakistan, was that the seeds were sown of Pakistan-China relationship. That was the first high-level contact between China and Pakistan after the independence of Pakistan and after the liberation of China, between the 2 prime ministers, Muhammad Ali Bogra Sahab and Premier Zhou Enlai. And it's so interesting that Premier Zhou Enlai accepted Pakistan's assertion that, look here, our participation in 2 important alliances forged by the Americans, CENTO, Central Treaty Organization, which included Iran and Turkey, and SEATO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, which included Thailand and Philippines. This is not directed against China. This is, for us, it is protection against Indian hegemony, Indian expansionism. So I think that was, and Zhou Enlai also said that we don't see you as an enemy. There was time of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. And that was a very close camaraderie between Delhi and India. But he said we won't. And invitations were extended. So in 1956, Premier Zhou Enlai comes to Pakistan, and the same year, Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi Saab goes to China. So that's how the relationship was there. And then, as was mentioned by Ambassador Sohail also, the seeds, and also Ambassador Zamir Akram, the seeds were sown of the subsequent emergence of the what is known as the Third World, or later on the Group of 77 and New Formation, Non-Alignment, and now the Global South. That was this conference of 29 countries, 23 Asian, 6 African. And by the way, there was a very big impact of Bandung in the black consciousness movement of the United States of America, which people don't write. A top American congressman who was African American, black American, Adam Clayton Powell, and he represented Harlem in the US Congress. He came specially, and he made a speech there. And later on, when I was studying in America, because I'm a great fan of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, the world heavyweight boxing champion, Malcolm X wrote an exuberance about Bandung conference. He said this is the first conference of people of color, that it's non-whites coming together, forging sorry, Nafisa, solidarity, and that word, and that was important. And then he, in fact, in 1959, organized a conference called Bandung Conference in Harlem, in New York. Harlem is a Black American area. So this is Malcolm X. And in one of his greatest speeches, it talks of the grassroots in *63. He again mentioned the Bandung Conference as a model for black unity and black solidarity. At that time, it was the movement was going on for racial equality. So you can see the impact of Bandung is beyond Asia. It's going to Africa. And then I think Zamir gave a very good listing of the hit list. A hit list was prepared.
Partial, that's the
Yeah,
word. Partial,
partial,
one I gave you.
partial one.
So
And let me specify very clearly, 27th of September 1957, please note, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs a national security directive to the CIA to overthrow Dr. Sukarno. 27th September, this is now on the record now, it's part of the record, 57. So the CIA starts activities, the attempt in Chekini, and then assassination attempt, revolts being induced, and they continued. He escaped those assassination attempts, but in '65, then they succeeded. And you mentioned Lamamba, there's another one, Ahmed Ben Bella. The second conference of Afro-Asian Solidarity was supposed to be held in Algiers in '65, 10 years later. And just 3 weeks before the conference, Ben Bella was ousted. Ben Bella was the host. And I met Ben Bella Sahib in, I was a journalist then, in the early 80s. He had settled in Geneva. And he was living there, and then he got married also, late marriage. So I had some friends who were friends with him. So I got a chance to talk about that thing. And he said that this was a CIA coup, according to him. Although later on the government also of Boumediene became very nationalist. But one of the impetus was the French and the American intelligence collaborated to get there should not be a second Bandung. And one other thing I'd like to mention for the audience here is that at that time, there was a very vicious band of these gang of two brothers who was running America's national security and foreign policy. John Foster Dulles, Secretary of State, Alan Welsh Dulles, CIA chief. So they were the bosses in charge. And by the way, those of you who are scholars who are interested, there's a very good book which has come out. It's called The Brothers. It's written by Stephen Kinzer, a New York Times. It's about the two brothers. How they destroyed the third world and did the coup d'etats, all the list that you gave. It was all, see, the State Department was run by the elder brother, the CIA was run by the younger brother. And by the way, Alan Welsh, John Foster Dulles died a natural death. He was the evangelist. And he coined the term. He said, anybody who talks of neutrality or non-alignment, this is immoral. This is a struggle between good and evil. The communists and us, they are the good guys, they are the evil guys. So they said, anybody who talks of neutrality, non-alignment, or the third, fourth, that is immoral. So he gave it a religious coloring almost. And then Alan Welsh Dulles was sacked by Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs. And then when Kennedy was killed, he was put on the Warren Commission to cover up the crime. So, this is how it is done. Interestingly, maybe the Trump papers will bring it out. So I just want to say the context. So it had tremendous implications and ramifications, this Bandung conference. And I would say the spirit of Bandung lives on. People say, I know they were at the Karachi conference also, people say, oh, what is the spirit? I said, look here, 2025, we are talking of the Asian century. We are talking of the global south, which is a living reality. And I think this tariffs and trade of Trump has totally failed. And I was seeing this little cartoon, you might have seen it. Trump is talking to Xi Jinping, and Trump says to Xi Jinping, I have all the cards. And Xi Jinping says, but the cards are made in China. So you see, so what cards we have? This is the reality of the 21st century. I have a little humbly with the permission of the chair, can I humbly beg to differ with one comment was made by one of the esteemed participants, Mr. Ambassador Zakaria, on solidarity. You said about language, solidarity, and mutual respect. I think language, in my view, is still important. Because language, sometimes, okay, we are very hyperbolic. We talk of that, and especially those of us who are Arabs, because Arabic language is very flowery, and the speeches are made are very. But I think the language also conveys a reality, and it also creates perceptions. Edward Said, who wrote this famous book Orientalism, and covering Islam, used to say, facts do not speak for themselves. They have to be backed up. They have to be sustained. They have to be circulated by a socially acceptable narrative. Rules-based international order. Now that has been the mantra of the West, which is nonsense. There are no rules. Rules don't apply for you, Abu Basuto. They apply only for the West. They are separate rules for that. Crimean annexation is wrong, but Kashmir annexation is fine. Or language Indo-Pacific, or so I think solidarity and others, like Chinese use win-win cooperation. And then American told me at a conference, he said, how come they can be win-win? Both sides cannot win. One has to lose, one has to win. So they cannot understand the context that they can be a mutually beneficial outcome of a certain event, or the principles of peaceful coexistence. So I think that language does play an important role, and the language of solidarity is quite inspiring, if I may say so. I think that it's also for morale booster also. And sometimes, but I agree, the reality should not be there. Yes, India is the hegemon, and they committed, or you alluded to that. There were other things happening also among the South-South countries that we should not paper over. We should be honest in saying. But I think that when we talk of the language of this thing, I think the language did play a good role in promoting unity and camaraderie, and as a source of inspiration. And as I mentioned about Malcolm X also, and other African American leaders. And even now, when we talk of this thing, I always dispute, even in the US, when they say Indo-Pacific, and I said it's Asia-Pacific. And then I asked one person, by the way, and he was a legislative assistant, a smart guy, to the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I said, why you change this term from 2018 from Asia Pacific to Indo Pacific? What was the reason? And I said, I smell a rat. He said, yes, to get the Indians in Indo Pacific, so make it more palatable for them. So I think it's very important to use that formulation. I just want to say that. Otherwise, I think it's been a great discussion, and especially in the current context. This time, Excellency, the Indonesian government, for reasons of austerity, I believe, did not have a celebration of Bandung. In 60 years of Bandung, there's a big celebration, and there was Xi Jinping was there, others were there. But I think your president decided, it's your decision, that. But I think there should have been some commemoration of Bandung, because it was a historic turning point. But I'm glad that we are making that up, making up for that, at least in Islamabad, in Karachi, in Pakistan. But I would still recommend, please recommend to your new ambassador who's going to come in soon, that Indonesia as the host should not forget its legacy. And that is one of the greatest legacies, not just for your great country, in which Pakistan has played a big role also. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah supported the war of liberation of Indonesia. 600 soldiers of the British Indian Army deserted the Indian Army, joined the INA, and out of that, 500 were martyred fighting for the war of independence of Indonesia. Muslim soldiers, 100 survived that. So, you know, and my father, when we were there, he made the plaque for those Muslim soldiers. So our relationship have been cemented in blood, and good legacies are rare for us, and especially in the global south. So I think that money or no money, you're spending billions to build a new capital in Nusantara. It would have cost you only a few $1 million to host an international conference. I'm sorry I'm being blunt, because I consider Indonesia as my second home, as family, so I can talk frankly. But please convey my sentiments to my friend Adam Tugio, former ambassador of Indonesia, who is now advisor to the Indonesian foreign minister, that this is my view, that the commemoration of Bandung from Indonesia in Indonesia is called for still. Yes, we'll go home there together and we'll say Merdeka Indonesia.
So thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a couple of minutes before we conclude for brief comments or questions. If we have. Please. One second, please, sir.
Actually, I have been misunderstood. My criticism has been actually referred by one is the chief guest here and one of the speakers. I did not mean. What I meant was we have to see the facts on ground. What happened 70 years down the line? The spirit behind which we all got together in Bandung, and then how it got translated 70 years down the line, where we are. So I think that was the reference that I wanted to make. I had no objection to the English language or the solidarity or something like that. But yeah, I just said that we have to see the facts on ground. Yeah. And it was in that context as to what the weakness was there actually. And that weakness still exists, and that's the reason why there's a big gap between developed world and the developing countries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir Mahmood.
Not to prolong this discussion on what Ambassador Nafis said, but I think everybody recognizes that Bandung really represented, as Senator Mushahid Hussain Saab also said, an assertion of autonomy by the non-Western world and an Asian or developing world perspective in an arena of international relations which had been dominated by Western thought. So this non-Western new alternative vision was the real salience of this. Certainly, secondly, the principles it emphasized are also enshrined in the UN Charter and also drew their inspiration from the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And I think it's very important to build a normative framework according to which we design our structures, institutions, and our working. Obviously, this is also true that there always remains a gap between the ideal and the reality. And people, institutions, nations aspire to achieve those ideals. And I understand that Ambassador Nafis Zakaria does not have any fundamental difference because the institution that he heads is a practical manifestation of what came out of Bandung process and also South-South cooperation. And he himself is making an enormously important contribution, bringing the nations of Asia and Africa and empowering them technologically and otherwise to meet the challenges of today. So I just wanted to add.
Thank you, sir. The young man here.
I am grateful for the acknowledgement, Dr. Saab. I am Barrister Matas Ali Afzal. I am a 22-year-old litigator based in Islamabad. In ideal circumstances, I would have loved to spend hours on building up on anecdotes presented by His Excellency Senator Mushahid Hussain Saab, but I will refrain from that due to time constraints. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it has been more than just half a century now since the passing away of the founders or the conveners of the Bandung Conference. And many in this room, I have felt during the discussions, many in this room and many outside this room have this conception that the Bandung spirit has passed away with the conveners. But as a keen student of history, I am of this firm opinion that that is simply not the case. I recognize His Excellency, the representative of Indonesia's comment on Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's role in convening the Bandung Conference. But friends, we cannot be mistaken. In Pakistan's context, we are not dealing with the Fabian socialist any longer. In 2025, and as we speak of now, Pakistani soldiers are lining up on borders, and we are facing a grave existential crisis, believe it or not. And God willing, we will overcome this challenge. We are facing off against an Islamophobe in the form of Narendra Modi. We are facing off against a man who is hell-bent on eliminating Muslims and any identity, individual identity of Muslims. The once occupied position that India had in the context of Bandung, which was multilateralism, which was cooperation, mutual cooperation between all South to South states. That spirit does not exist, regardless of how their external affairs minister, Dr. Jaishankar, portrays himself to be non-aligned in many ways. Your Excellencies, the point that I'm trying to make is that this is the best time that Pakistan has to step up on the forefront of this foray and stage, to occupy that position, a leading position in ensuring that the Bandung spirit does not just remain a commemorative spirit, that we transform this into materialized institutions and to crystallize this spirit into something more meaningful. We have the SCO, we have BRICS, and a week or so ago, this institute hosted the General Secretary of the SCO. So I hope that we can see some development on that end, and I would like to hear a brief comment or two from Your Excellencies on this matter. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. Fabian socialism died in India with Nehru. The center of gravity of India is no longer Nehruvian secularism, whatever it's worth. It is now Hindutva, which is divisive, which is bigoted, and which, in my view, is inspired by fascism and neo-Nazism, because it was formed, this party, RSS, which is actually the ruling party. Please read the article of Arundhati Roy in the New York Times. She wrote, and I repeat, in today's India, RSS is the state. She's not talking of BJP, RSS. And these are all, Atal Bihari Vajpayee Sahib was a different cup of tea. These people have an animus towards Muslims. They are divisive. They have vindicated Qaid-e-Azam's two-nation theory. And you should know that in the Indian Lok Sabha today, there is a map of Akhand Bharat. Actually, a map has been put up there. Akhand Bharat means Greater India. Only two countries have this irredentism. One is Israel, Eretz Israel, Greater Israel, and that includes the map of Pakistan, Myanmar, Afghanistan, and parts of Central Asia. So we should know who we are dealing with. And that should be absolutely no ambiguity in that. And I think on that count, there is no ambiguity. But by the grace of God, I think in the next 10 years, I expect 5 new Muslim middle powers to play a leading role: Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the Republic of Indonesia, inshallah, in their respective regions, because of their role, their past track record, and the potential to play that, I think, pivotal role in connectivity and linking up together, because President Trump is presiding over a declining America. The balance of center of gravity has shifted from the west to the east, and I think there's so much autonomy, strategic space for countries like Pakistan to play that role. And India itself has been greatly disappointed by the lack of support from Trump directly. The American system is very pro-Indian, but Trump himself, his statement that he said, I have very good relations with Pakistan, I have very good relations with India. And then he said the issues are long-standing tensions over Kashmir, which is over 1,000 years old. Basically, he was referring to not Kashmir, but Hindu-Muslim issues. And then I think he has no idea who is ruling. He still thinks Imran Khan is Prime Minister of Pakistan, because he said, I have very good relations with the leaders of Pakistan. But it's a very good statement. He has no tell towards India. He has accepted Kashmir as the cause of tensions, and he said, let these two countries figure it out themselves, one way or the other, which is good. We'll figure it out ourselves, as long as they are not helping in the Indian hegemons. So I think that we have, by the grace of Almighty, and thank you for your inspiring comments. And give me your CV after this meeting.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Ambassador may like to add something.
Very quickly, 2 points. I think appreciate the comments that you have made. With regard to India, among other things, it has been Pakistan's endeavor for quite some time to sensitize the international community of what kind of transformation has taken place in India and is taking place. The founding fathers of the Republic of India believed in two organizing principles. democracy and secularism. You know, there can be debate of how much they were able to achieve or how sincere they were, but these were the two organizing principles. But today's India is emphasizing, in contrast to democracy and secularism, majoritarianism and authoritarianism. These are the leading impulses in the ruling dispensation today. And look at how much this country has traveled from that vision that Nehru and Gandhi are no longer the heroes. The assassins of Gandhi are heroes today. So this is the transformation that Pakistan has also tried to illustrate to our friends, particularly in the West, to look at what is happening. And this very romantic view of India, recognized by largest democracy or yoga or Bollywood, there is something deep is happening, and it could surprise many people. We are today confronting it, we are facing it, but I think it's better that the international community also sees this change and recognizes its implications, not only for India's own internal security and social harmony, but also for regional peace and international peace and security as well. Your second comment about Pakistan doing something practically, as you know, Pakistan has been very active in the multilateral forums in the United Nations. Obviously, today we are also member of the Security Council, elected member, but Pakistan played a very important role as leader of the G77 and China. In Sharm el-Sheikh, you saw a global outcome on loss and damage fund come out in many ways through Pakistan's leading efforts while Pakistan was chairing this. Very active on SCO, and also reached out for membership in BRICS as well. We hope that India, will not block this. So far, they have been opposed to this idea, but we have good friends in BRICS, and we will continue to pursue that. But wherever Pakistan can support practical steps to ensure that the Bandung spirit not only remains alive, but also is manifested in practical cooperation among countries of the global south, Pakistan will continue to make those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ji. Achha, okay. Gilani.
My name is Hassan Gilani from Pakistan Television. Mushahid Sahab, as you said that the US has apparently played a very balanced role with regards to our recent standoff. A lot of people in Pakistan are saying that the world powers are not throwing enough weight behind Pakistan also in terms of diffusing the tension and de-escalating the situation. Pakistan is not getting the kind of support it was expecting to. Is that something that you agree with?
No, I don't agree with that. Let's see 2-3 things. Previously, the weight of the West, led by the US, was mostly thrown entirely behind India. That has not happened there. Secondly, I would also like to commend our diplomatic corps, and that includes Zamir Akram and other competent professionals, that the UN Security Council resolution, which has been passed, which India didn't want. The language had to be changed. An American's president did something else. That has been a very good resolution, our presence in the UN Security Council, and that has generally been accepted. And yesterday's New York Times, if you saw the story, it's come also in the the New York Times, which we get it. 2 times they mentioned that India has not been able to provide evidence about Pakistan complicity or Pakistani involvement in the Pahalgam terrorist attack on 22nd. And also you should know that I think perhaps I'm a bit concerned about the irresponsible statements of some of our ministers, because they make a statement, oh, there's imminent attack, and then they back out, like the defense minister did, or the statement of the interior minister. He said, oh, there should be a joint inquiry of Jafar train of 11th, and this thing. Don't mix your drinks. Focus on the target. So I think that strategic, I think left to diplomats, they'll handle it much better. And on 24th of April, there was a briefing to the All Parties Conference and Lok Sabha in India. And please see the press reports. The Indian Intelligence Bureau and the security apparatus admitted there was a security lapse, that an attack took place 400 kilometers inside Indian occupied Kashmir in Pahalgam, which had a 3-tier security ring around it, because it's a bit of a mountainous region. And there's a 740 kilometer barbed wire, which is electronic. So obviously, it's their primary responsibility in that occupied part of the thing. So I would say China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and other countries. So they are people who are sympathetic. Nobody has bought the Indian narrative about Pakistani involvement. The entire Indian case is built on 10 minutes after the terrorist strike that it is Pakistani sponsored, Pakistani connivance, Pakistani complicity. So far, only one country is standing firmly with India, that is Israel. And they also use the word Islamist terrorism, by the way. But I think no other countries. So I think so far so good, we are doing quite okay. And it's not a war situation as yet. It's a situation which is eyeball to eyeball, fine. But main thing is that the morale is holding up in Pakistan because we are a smaller country. I've been appearing on a lot of television channels internationally also, and they all say that India is so big and Pakistan is so small. And I always say size does not equal strength. If that was the case, by now the Cuban Revolution would have been finished by the Americans, the Vietnamese would have been losing, the Afghans would have lost to the Soviets and the Americans. That does not, it depends on your willpower, your intention, your capability. And I always give the example of Pulwama. February 2019, probably a false flag operation, blamed on Pakistan. My sister was then in the World Bank. She was the senior most Pakistani there. She had an Indian colleague, and that Indian colleague told her in December 2018. The Indian colleague had a sister who was a journalist in India, who was anti-Modi. She said, my sister says something big is going to happen soon because India is having elections, so they will create something. And this was in December 2018 in Washington. And Pulwama took place, and that was to win the election. And when they attacked, and we hit back after 24 hours, shot down 2 of their planes, captured Abhinandan, and they also downed their own helicopter. And then they went running to the Americans to get Abhinandan free. And as you know, General Bajwa got a call from Pompeo and for the release, and we did release it as a goodwill gesture. So the question is, CNN asked me then, okay, Senator, what's going to happen? There's going to be a big war? I said, no. He said, no, but you have done this, India will not going to spare. I said, Modi, understand Modi. Modi, where he's coming from? He's a bully. And a bully is waiting to browbeat you. And if you blink, if you back off, then he'll run all over you. But they said, oh, but Modi always means what he says. He has done this. And he said, what has he done? 2 military conflicts with China. Galwan, June 2020 and January 2020. He lost 2,000 kilometers of territory. Not a squeak out of him. Then the Americans, Raw tried to assassinate a Sikh in California. The Americans threw out the station chief of Raw from Washington. And the Indians said, yes, we will cooperate with you. We will have an inquiry on that other thing also. So he respects power. Somebody which can do that. And even on this issue of tariffs, he was humiliated by Trump. The first plane that left Washington, D.C. after Trump administration was carrying 108 Indian illegal migrants with their handcuffs to Chandigarh. And India has the 3rd largest number of illegal migrants. Do you know that? Mexico, El Salvador, and India. And India, how many? 750,000. And where are they from? Gujarat, UP, Bihar, Punjab, Haryana, northern states. And who are they? Young people. 45% youth unemployment. And they all make the trek via Latin America. And finally, Modi's best friend, who is he? Adani, that crook from Gujarat. He was sanctioned by the US treasury. And not a squeak out of them. They say we'll fully cooperate. So please note this thing. It's all about power and trying to bully and browbeat. And we are a peaceful country. We do not want that, yes. But we know our lessons also, and we know how to head back to preserve, promote, and protect our sovereignty and our homeland. Inshallah, we'll do that again. Thank you.
So thank you. May I like to request any of the panelists if you wish to respond to any of the questions? No. Ladies and gentlemen, since we are pressed on time, so I would like to invite Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman Board of Governors, for a vote of thanks, please. Sir, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Senator Mashad Hussain Sayyid, Director General ISSI, Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, Shagird Affair of the Embassy of Indonesia, Ambassador Rahmat, other distinguished panelists, including Zamir Akram, Salma Malik, and Nafiz Zikriya. The Institute of Strategic Studies organized this event to commemorate the historical conference which took place in Bandung 70 years ago. That conference was very significant because it brought for the first time the newly emerging independent countries of Asia and Africa. And even there were some liberation movement representatives who attended this conference. Now, this conference took place at a time, as I said, when the previous colonies were gaining independence one by one. And there was a lot of resentment felt by these countries, how they have been treated by the colonizers. And they wanted to have a platform, some framework where they could get together and in solidarity try to address the problem they are facing post-liberation. So this conference has been amplified by other speakers. It led to the adoption of 10 principles for international relationship. Now those principles were nothing new. They have already enshrined in the United Nations Charter in 1945. Those have been reaffirmed in the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. But it was felt that the fact that those principles are so universal and fundamental that they need reiteration. And that was done at this conference. And Bandung conference then led to many other initiatives and developments in the implementation of those principles, like the non-aligned movement, like the Group of 77, where the developing world could get together in solidarity and pursue their interests vis-a-vis the Western capitalist world. It led to the adoption of new international economic order and also many regional organizations like ASEAN and also African Unity, all these bodies. But I would agree with Ambassador Nafiz Zikriya that no one can question the validity, importance of these principles. But unfortunately, there is left a gap between the existence of these principles and their implementation. Even, as has been rightly pointed out, even the countries like India, I must say openly, which were the leading lights at this conference, they themselves flouted and are still flouting those basic principles which were adopted at this conference. So this has led to weakening of the third world solidarity. And this is a wake-up call, in fact, that we need to get together to pool our resources to show solidarity, because otherwise the Western world has many ways how to undermine the solidarity, including the coups which take place, regime changes. All these things we have to guard against these attempts by the Western world to sow seeds of disunity among the developing countries. So I would conclude by saying that the spirit of Bandung remains relevant. We need to protect that spirit, and that we have to show our commitment, reaffirm our commitment to the 10 principles of peaceful coexistence and which were adopted at this conference. And I must thank and appreciate the Institute's CP, China Pakistan Study Center, for organizing this very timely.
Congratulations on your daughter's marriage. I'm sorry we missed it because we were in Karachi. Thank you for that.
We missed you.
I'm very sorry, but because of Bandung, because
My contribution. So thank you very much, all the
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, before refreshment, we'll just have a group photo with the speaker and the panelists.
Okay, smile for the cameras. Arif Sheikh sir, कोई photo नहीं चल. Thank you. नहीं वो मैं उधर दूंगा. As usual. Picture.